You're tuning into the Dong Nai radio and television station, coming first with local news. Immediately after the closing session of the 13th National Congress of the party on February the 1st, General Secretary and President Nguyễn Phú Trọng presided over the press conference to announce the results of the Congress. At the press conference, General Secretary and State President Nguyễn Phú Trọng said that the first important task of the Congress was to organize documents, develop reports looking back on the implementation of the 12th Congress resolution, and look back on 35 years of innovation, review the past 5 years, political, socio-economic reports. Human resource work is also done very early from 2018, carefully, very thoughtfully, cautiously, objectively, and fairly, step by step, consult agencies. General Secretary and State President Nguyễn Phú Trọng stated that the upcoming direction is not only 5 years, but also a longer direction. The success of the Congress is not only through the resolution and election of a new executive board, but more importantly, how the resolution must be brought to life in the near future, how the resolution will be realized and concretized. The meeting was very successful, shortened nearly 2 days compared to the plan, is one of the most successful congresses in all aspects, inspired by the determination, will and courage to bring the country to new heights. Directorate for Roads at Vietnam has just proposed to stop organizing driving training and testing in order to avoid the COVID-19 infection in the community. Directorate for Roads of Vietnam suggests driving training and testing institutions based on the direction of the government, the Ministry of Transport, the Provincial People's Committee, and the actual situation in the locality, consider stopping the training tested to avoid infection in the community. At the same time, in the face of the new complicated development of the epidemic, relevant units are required to continue directing passengers transportation business units to strictly comply with the measures to prevent and combat epidemics and medical declaration regulations. In particular, focusing on the sterilization of vehicles, making a list of onions, post of the recommendations of the Ministry of Health, the World Health Organization on measures to prevent epidemics on vehicles. On February the 1st, Dr. Lê Quang Trung, Deputy Director of Dong Nai Department of Health, said that so far the province has traced, took samples for testing, and put into isolation concentrated nearly 80 cases coming from epidemic areas. All of these cases have tested negative first time. Specifically, by the end of January the 31st, there were 51 people returning from epidemic areas in the provinces of Vietnam to their localities doing quarantine at concentrated quarantine establishments, of which 17 people returned from Hải Dương province, 27 people returned from Quảng Ninh province, 6 people traveling with flights VN213 with positive cases. There are also 28 cases of going back from Vân Đồn Airport, Jilin City, which were concentrated in isolation at the Dong Nai Medical College. Nearly 80 of the above cases were status negative for SARS-CoV-2 and continued to be isolated for 21 days after leaving the epidemic area to Dong Nai. U.S. President Joe Biden called Monday on Myanmar's military to relinquish power immediately and ordered a review to consider reimposing sanctions lifted due to the nation's transition to democracy. In a statement, Mr. Biden called on the international community to come together to pressure the Myanmar army to immediately give up the power it had just seized earlier that day. He said the U.S. lifted sanctions on Myanmar in the past decade based on its implementation of the democratic reform process. To reversing this process would require the U.S. to immediately consider sanctions and laws followed by appropriate action. He also emphasized that the U.S. will coordinate with partners in the region and the world to help restore the law, as well as blame those involved in the military coup in Myanmar. About the COVID-19 war, on February the 1st, the Biden administration expressed concern that healthcare providers may be stockpiling doses of the vaccine. The White House Pandemic Senior Advisor Andy Slavitt said, "We believe that some healthcare providers routinely keep doses of vaccine they are expected to take for the first injection as a backup." According to him, although the authorities understand why suppliers do this, this is not necessary and should not be happening at the moment. He said the move by the Biden administration with last week's release provides a 3-week deadline for a vaccine shipment to reduce concerns about the vaccine being held for a second shot. That's all for the news today. Thank you for joining us and goodbye.